you are in the middle of every story that's potentially happening with every single team somehow. It'll be 11:30 at night. Something will come across your desk or wire. We got a tweet, we got a post, we got a story. And the next morning, everybody's like, did you see what came out last night at Pro Football Talk? Because of how long you've been around. The big story, I think that you were afraid, and this is me looking at, afraid to chat about on draft night, almost got legitimized by another writer in Minnesota. Justin Jefferson, you said you had rumblings during draft night that he was potentially going to get traded on draft night for Malik Nabers' pick for the Minnesota Vikings. That ends up not happening. They get J.J. McCarthy. Now Justin Jefferson seemingly a part of the future with the Vikings. But once the Pioneer Press kind of report on that, the local newspaper, that gives you a green light to be like, hey, we're also hearing this, or we're hearing this as well. And where do you kind of sit on this particular story right now, Florio?
Here's what happened. During draft night, I heard from somebody I've known for a long time and I trust who was plugged into what was happening with the Chargers. The Chargers were contemplating a trade down from number 5. Jim Harbaugh, new head coach there, was all in on taking Joe Alt, the tackle from Notre Dame. There may have been some division in the draft room as to whether or not they should trade down, and I was told the Vikings were trying to trade up to get the LSU receiver Malik Nabers. Now, Justin Jefferson wouldn't have been part of that package. I don't know what they would have done with Justin Jefferson. All I was hearing that night, and Chris Sims, who's with me on PFT Live every morning, heard the same thing separately from a different source, the idea that the Vikings are trying to get to 5 to get Nabers. Now, Charlie Walters, the St. Paul Pioneer Press, followed that up on Sunday with the 2-for-1. Justin Jefferson would have been traded after and separately from Malik Nabers being acquired if they'd moved up. But I said it in a video because I was doing them one after another as the picks were being made on draft night, but I was never able to nail it down. So I never wrote anything about it. I never said anything more about it because I wanted to have it 100%, or at least as close to 100% as possible. Once I saw somebody else say it, okay, hey, I heard this same thing. Let's blast it out there and see what happens. But that's dead. That's over. I think they're going to get a deal done and keep Jefferson around. But I also think there's something to this idea. They were exploring their options back around draft night and looking at maybe going a lot cheaper. You know, Jefferson, $35 million a year maybe. They could have gotten Nabers for $29 million for all 4 years to start his career.
Yeah, and that's the balance of if you pay a wide receiver, you seemingly can't pay a quarterback. If you pay a quarterback, you can't pay a wide receiver. Cincinnati's going to have to deal with that. I assume somebody's going to bring that up to you with the new, because wide receivers are going to get 35, 40 million top end. It's going to end up happening. And Justin Jefferson, certainly worthy. And there'd be a lot of teams that'd be willing to pay him that to get a weapon as explosive as him. The thought of him potentially being traded was something that people were dreaming of around the NFL. I think the Patriots were even like, yeah, if you want to trade us Justin Jefferson, you can come up and get 3.
Yep.
You want to come up to 3, give us Justin Jefferson. I think a lot of teams felt that way. So the thought that maybe it was possible is certainly something we enjoy looking back on. But Justin Jefferson being a Viking seemingly is going to be the case regardless, which is kind of the thought of when they move on from Kirk Cousins, right? So it's like the Vikings kind of have this story arc where it's like, can't pay Kirk because what the Falcons are paying him is so much money. We're not going to be able to keep up. Have to pay Justin Jefferson. But then there's a thought, wait, well, if we get Malik Nabers, do we need, and then it's wild what teams go through to get to the final product, Florio. I think that is kind of what this story exemplifies almost.
I think it's taken the Vikings time, guys, to come to terms with what it's going to take to get this done. You've got the raw dollars, and you've also got the structure. I reported a year ago tomorrow to the day that structural issues could keep this from happening. And it's plain and simple. It's how much you're going to fully guarantee it's signing. The Vikings don't go as deep into the future as other teams do when it comes to the full guarantee at the time you put your name at the bottom of the contract. They need to deviate from that to get this deal done. I think they have to fully guarantee 3 years at signing to get Justin Jefferson done. And I don't think they've wanted to do that. So it's a combination of how much is it going to take by way of actual dollars, new money, average per year. I think he's looking at Joey Bosa's 34 a year as the minimum because the GM's already said he deserves to be paid like a top non-quarterback in the National Football League. 35 to 40, the sweet spot, but first 3 years fully guaranteed. So the Vikings have to come around on total average and structure. That's the key.
So good. Go ahead, AJ.
Mike, do we know what his relationship is like and Justin's agent's relationship is like with the franchise? And will this change anything? Like, can Justin, did he have any idea about this possibly being shopped and everything going on during the draft weekend?
Hey, that's a great point, because this is the kind of thing that can drive a wedge between player and team. The good news for the Vikings, the best news is the quarterback they drafted in J.J. McCarthy is represented by the same firm. So it's a little easier to smooth things over and make it all work when quarterback and receiver under the same umbrella, there's a mutual benefit in both guys being as good as they can be. I don't get the impression that this Nabers stuff ever really blossomed to the point where it was a thing. And of course, now the Vikings are never going to admit it. People that cover the team are going to be saying that's not true, it wasn't going to happen, because the ship sailed. It's not going to occur. You got to work it out with Justin Jefferson. Yeah, you pondered the possibilities. Let's forget about that. Let's keep this guy. And I think once the money's there and once the structure's there, nothing else matters. It's all part of negotiations and what you do to get to where you need to be. I think there's a good chance they're going to get to where they need to be, but the Vikings are the ones that have to have the epiphany on structure and dollars.
Well, the amount of teams that would call if Justin Jefferson was available would be through the roof. Yeah. So I think that's just standard operating procedure in the NFL, especially if you're a star coming up on a contract deal. So I don't think the Vikings even thinking about it at one point should drive a wedge. But all it sounds like is that Justin Jefferson's about to get like $100 million guaranteed to play wide receiver. Congratulations to him and to the Vikings, who seemingly have the quarterback of the future and the wide receiver of the present and the future, best in the NFL. We'll be back tomorrow on this beautiful ESPN network with more bullshit. That matters, though, because it's journalism. See you then.